Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a team and DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elsevier, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all with 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another fantastic episode of Straight Chilling. My name is Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 189, recorded on Sunday, November 18th, 2018. Tonight, we're going to be talking about The Haunting of Hill House. Before we get into the review, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, my boy calling in from the Santa Barbara, California, Randy Gandy G. Landy.
I gotta say, it's a little presumptuous of you to assume this episode's going to be, quote, fantastic before we've even started. But
they all are, baby.
Power
Gold.
Positive thinking, I guess? I don't know.
We're shitting gold over here.
We are certainly shitting.
Also calling in from Santa Barbara, California, we got Becky. What's up, Bex?
Hey, not much. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Shitting.
Great.
Shitting our pants, apparently.
Nice.
Shitting on record.
Into our
Better talk
listeners'
about-
ears. Last but not least, calling in from Southern Korea, my boy Soju.
What up? It's your boy, Soju Stains.
Oh,
Melodic today.
Got a little song in my heart, you know?
Yeah, it's atonal, but it's a song, I guess.
It's Thanksgiving week, you bastards. You ready to stuff your faces?
yeah.
Got a whole week off.
We got our smallpox blankets already.
How festive. Aw.
Mm-hmm.
Aw. Sweet. I'm making that
So
cranberry sauce.
vintage.
So vintage.
Ooh.
I am ready for some dinners of death, personally, but
Yeah, that's right, man. Joe Bob Briggs.
Joe Bob's coming back. And there's no way he's not doing Blood Rage. There's just no way he's doing Blood Rage.
Is there going to be a live tweet going on?
There might be a live tweet going on. It's a consideration.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to stay up as late as I can. It starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I think it rolls till like 5 in the morning or something like that. There's going to be 4 movies. He's definitely doing Texas Chainsaw. He hasn't said that, but he obviously is. And probably Blood Rage, and then 2 other.
We could be doing Texas Chainsaw, but you know.
Oh my goodness gracious! Great balls.
Not salty or anything, but you know, we could be living up to the legend of Mr. Bob Briggs or whatever.
Mr.
Oh yeah,
You're
it sounds like it's extremely legendary to you because you have no idea what this man's name is.
Get off of this show.
Richard
El
Briggs. Okay.
Chupacabra Briggs.
Close your Skype window right now. What are you doing?
Richard Bibbs.
Oh my god. Oh man. So the December poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon site. If you have chosen to support us at the $5 level or above, you are entitled to vote for our December poll pick. We got 3 movies up there for you, ready to go. You can vote between Misery, Nightmare Before Christmas, and The Shining. Make sure you do that before the end of November, because it's going to be closed come December 1st.
Hey Becky, you gonna vote in that?
I don't subscribe to this shit.
That's right, you don't. You don't get to vote because you're not a Patreon.
If you care
Judas?
to vote, A2 or something like that.
Mr. Richard Bibbs.
Get off of this show. Go teach some children. So make sure you vote on that. And I think that's all we have for new news. Other than the live tweet, which, yes, Justin kind of hinted at. We'll be doing it. I'll be doing it as long as I can. I'm sure I'll pass out before the end of the marathon.
I might be able to hang out a little longer because I'm West Coast time. But
True. True.
What's our Twitter handle? I don't even think I follow us on Twitter.
I say it every single episode.
I was like, I
say
didn't
it.
know that.
That's deep.
I know.
That's tune out territory, Rob. That's not our fault.
It is at STR8_chilling.
All right,
Dear
got it.
God. Okay.
At Straight Chilling Podcast.
.net.
At 69 Soju 420's radical, bro. Hashtag me too.
Yeah.
Whatevs.
I'm gonna go ahead and add Richard Bibbs as well.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Hey Randy, what you been watching?
Well, Beck and I kind of are sharing one because we saw a movie last night that I'm guessing a lot of people actually watched because it is on Netflix and it's also we saw it in theaters and I guess it's a limited theater release, but it's the new Coen Brothers film called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Gay.
Super
That's
delightful.
I'm just playing. How was
I
it?
hope so.
I think Rob was just replaced with a 7th grader. I'm not sure.
From 1995.
I legit didn't know that was a Coen Brothers movie, and now I do want to watch it.
It's delicious. It's great.
delicious.
Delicious.
Damn.
I'm tired today. It was really good.
I don't know. Delicious.
Sounds like the beans are quivering.
James Franco's in it. So
What?
it's just getting some shit going.
I mean, we were like the youngest people in the audience because we're in fucking Santa Barbara.
Yeah, by a significant margin of like 30 years.
Damn, dude.
But it was good.
But it was a good fucking movie. It's a beautiful looking movie. For those who don't know, it's a Coen Brothers movie. It's 6 stories anthology set in all westerns, all very western, and all kind of like taking on a slightly different tone, but they all kind of like fit that Coen Brothers feel. So you've got some really bizarre like Looney Tunes level shenanigans happening in some of them, and then other ones they're just really morose and really like well acted. It's all really well acted. It's got fucking everybody. Fucking Tom Waits is in this bish.
Oh,
Wow.
Well, I'm sold.
Main character almost.
Yeah.
As like one of the main
Yeah,
characters.
he's one of the. He's
Oh,
like
shut up.
he's the central character in one of the 6 stories, and he's great, obviously, because it's fucking Tom.
I'm in. You got me.
That dude's getting pretty old, right?
Yeah,
He's an old guy.
He's an old guy. He plays an old prospector. So I mean,
That makes sense.
yeah, it's great. So yeah, what do you think, Beck?
Yeah, I really liked it. There's only one of the 6 stories we weren't like super into, but it was still good. It was just sad.
Yeah,
And
there's one story
kind of
that's
a bummer.
just mostly a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's sad, but yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a very odd entry in their collection, but it's at the same time fits perfectly well.
This might be one of the only Coen Brothers movies I have seen.
You've probably seen more than you think. I mean, let's go down the list. It's what Lebowski.
Haven't seen it.
Wow, I'm blanking out. Oh, No Country for Old Men.
Haven't seen it. I saw Oh Brother, Where Art
Brother,
Thou.
Where Art Thou.
That's the only one I think of.
Okay.
Simple Blood.
those dudes
Fargo.
So good.
Anyways, it was good. I enjoyed it.
They did the No Country for Old Men.
I think it probably fits most well with somewhere between Big Lebowski and Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Maybe Raising Arizona in there too, but it's got that sort of like it is what it is. Here's this goofy story sort of thing going.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's great.
Cool. Becky, you been watching anything else?
Andy was out a few nights ago by himself doing some
Hookers.
prostitution.
Doing
Sling
some
and leg.
prostitution.
So I was
Side
sad.
hustle.
Well, I sometimes like to bum myself out with my movie selection on
All the time,
purpose.
all the time.
All the time. But anyways, I thought about going down a rabbit hole of like 9/11 stuff. So I watched.
Okay.
So I watched United 93 or whatever that Flight 93, whatever that movie is about the flight that went down. And then I also watched a conspiracy theory documentary about 9/11. But it wasn't even just like, shit went wrong. Like, this is what went wrong. They just called Al-Qaeda and just like basically said it was Saudi Arabia's fault. And apparently there's families of the 9/11 people who are suing Saudi Arabia as a country for it. But Obama said no. And then now they're like, well, now Trump's here, so maybe we'll be yes. But regardless, it was interesting and weird. So.
And now we're on some watch lists.
Yeah. So whatever.
I'm watching you.
Amen.
It was interesting. So I was pretty young when that happened. Not super young, but young enough to remember it. But,
sprightly 73.
Yeah. But it was interesting to like revisit it a little differently.
Randy's robbing the cradle. Our viewers don't know, but they need to be reminded.
I was in 3rd grade. Like super young.
Becky, you just turned 17, right?
We were 23, Becky, at the time. So
I was a member of Congress at that time.
Anyways, that's all I've been watching. So.
Cool.
Pretty boring. Yeah.
Juice, what you been watching?
I watched that new Harry Potter's, and they kind of fucked themselves a little bit.
That new one was terrible.
Well, they locked themselves into that whole like Fantastic Beast title, which kind of applied to the first one, but doesn't really apply to the second one. But since they kind of launched their like new deal under that, they're kind of like locked in. So I don't know. It's a bit of a misnomer for sure. And yeah, it was, they tried to do a lot. They tried to like tie too many things into like what would eventually become Harry Potter world, like Harry Potter, well, I don't want to do like any spoilers, but just like these people show up that were just like really like obscure mentions in like Harry Potter, and they're trying to make them like things, and they're like trying to tie it all in, and it gets to a point where it's like just make some new people. It's okay if they weren't ever like mentioned one time in the 7 series of Harry Potter. That's not. Fine. It's not. Like, it's okay.
Everybody that's ever mentioned in Harry Potter has to be very significant. That's a fact.
Well, and the thing is, I remember liking the first Fantastic Beasts when I watched it in theaters, and I don't think I've seen it since, but I went into the theater and I was like, I actually don't remember anything about that first movie.
Exactly.
So it couldn't have been that good.
I remember a dude with a terrible haircut and then like a Brooklyn guy, and that's it.
Yeah, I remember like Colin Farrell, right? He was in that movie, right?
Will Ferrell?
Yeah, I think so.
Ferrell.
Colin Farrell turns into like Johnny Depp at the end, and I was like, well, that's okay, I guess. And
call him
that's
no matches.
That's a natural. That's like a Pokemon style evolution to his natural.
That's pretty relevant, actually. But yeah, so I watched that. It was okay. It was, I don't know what they're trying to do over there. Making a hot mess, honestly.
Making money. That's what they're trying to do.
Well, yeah, and they're making. But I mean, here's the thing. The whole making money excuse, it's like, it's obvious now, like with movies, like look at fucking Halloween made so much money. Like you can make a quality movie.
Like Halloween?
No, I'm just saying, like you can you can make a quality movie.
Yeah,
it doesn't, and still make money. Like you don't have to.
Just like Halloween.
You don't have to just make a shit movie for a money grab.
No, nobody thinks they're making a shit movie. They're like, fucking yeah, I'm just making.
Well,
like
sometimes I think it's phoned it.
Well, yeah, certainly to some degree, but. Nobody wants to make a bad movie. They accidentally make a bad movie.
I suppose so.
My boy Lloyd Kaufman might say otherwise.
Lloyd's a genius, and I won't have you besmirching his beautiful name.
He knows. He knows what he's doing.
I agree.
He's a fan of yours, eh, Randy?
That's right.
The man liked me on Twitter, so I instantly started barfing blood and guts and praising Jesus.
True story.
In true trauma style. That's what happens when the good Lord Kaufman shines down on you.
Oh my Lord. I started watching Channel Zero this week there, lady and gents. Everybody like in the world has been like recommending this to me, and I finally like got over the fact that the Tooth Creature is only in the first season. So I jumped in. I jumped into the third season, Butcher's Block.
It's already on season 3?
4 is currently happening, but on Shudder, the first 3 are up there. So I'm starting.
I remember when you're shitting your pants over that tooth monster. That seems like just the other day.
Duke in the draws. Yeah, it's like every day. But I don't know, Butcher's Block, I'm like 3 or 4 episodes into it. I'm like really, really enjoying it, actually. It's pretty great. It's a lot like scarier than I thought it would be for a sci-fi original show. I figured it'd be like kind of lame, honestly. But it's got some pretty decent gore, and it's like more graphic than I thought it would be. This particular season, it's like almost Cronenberg-y in a way.
Really?
It reminds me of The Brood, specifically.
Wow.
With like, yeah, these creepy little like kid monster thing. Anyway,
That's interesting because the first 2 seasons are the ones I've seen, and I wouldn't characterize them as overly gory at all.
Yeah.
Like, they're more psychological than anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a big aspect of this is psychological for sure. It's a big part, but yeah, there's some pretty clear cut gore going on. Yeah, it reminds me of like Candyman meets The Brood. That's what this season so far feels like, which is weird. Yeah,
I love that idea, but I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm digging it so far. I'm gonna finish this season out and probably watch the second season as well. Good shit, sci-fi. Good shit. It's also got one of the girls from It Follows in it. The one that's always eating. Olivia Lucardi.
Brad Pitt.
Okay, yeah.
Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Ocean's 11. Great.
That's the one.
That girl, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's really all I've been watching, though. That's about it. Let's go ahead and talk about The Haunting of Hill House and get into the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
The back of the box that does not exist because this is a Netflix original and you probably will never be able to buy it. So there you go.
They put them out sometimes.
You can watch Stranger Things. They have
You
it
can
on
watch
DVD.
Arrested Development season 4 or 5.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I thought you were the steel case magnate over there. I thought you knew your shit.
Magnate. That's what they called me in high school, motherfucker. on occasion, yeah, you can buy some Netflix shit. Hopefully they put this show out. It's pretty sweet. Anyway.
It's successful enough. But anyway, go ahead.
It's here's the old plot synopsis. Flashing between past and present, a fractured family confronts haunting memories of their old home and the terrifying events that drove them from it. Created
Spooky Ghost Show.
Yeah, exactly. Is spooky. Created and directed by Mike Flannigan. Mr. Michael Flannigan, who's like Netflix. He's all over Netflix, man.
Yeah.
He is. He's getting all kinds of stuff worked on Netflix.
Yep. He is in.
That would probably be a
around
sweet gig just to be like locked into Netflix. I feel like that's a more of a low pressure kind of gig.
Yeah, they don't really care what quality. Well, they care, I'm sure.
They
But
don't. They don't.
Yeah, but they
have a
crank
very
out so
wide-
much stuff. They really
Yeah.
don't seem too concerned with the quality.
they have
Or
some
like, I don't
shit
know.
things too.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Like they're definitely like just trying to populate their catalog so that once everybody wises up and they're like, oh shit, we gotta make our own a little streamer channel that can rival Netflix, and they all pull their licenses. They can still show something. Like
Yeah.
That shit's
Yeah.
coming.
Disney's
And
doing it.
but at this point, I mean, they kind of have like some staple shows. Obviously like Stranger Things and
Orange is the New Black.
yeah, that one. and
There's some cultural
some other ones.
milestones in this show in Netflix at this point. Stranger Things being the biggest one, but I don't know.
and being in the whole like movie business too, to like pump out the full length features too.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to start gatekeeping a little harder, though. I think so. Get in while you can. Like,
I definitely think they'll like once Disney kind of pulls out and does their thing. I think I don't know, they'll like fizzle out like Blockbuster. I think it'll be like that thing like we talk about like, oh, remember like MySpace, and then like Netflix is just like not gonna exist anymore.
Yeah, if they keep making stuff, I think they'll do okay. As long as it doesn't all just start sucking for some reason.
And they could do Stranger Things for years and people would still watch it. I think.
people would still cream their jeans over fucking Stranger Things once it gets to like 1998 within the storyline.
And then we'll be in a whole new generation of nostalgia kids.
Yeah, 11 will be 37 years old.
Remember the early 2000s when we were 5?
Remember emo?
No.
Dashboard Confession?
No.
Wait, right? Or something?
Confessional, yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, that
Taxi Cab Confessions, the band.
Remember Tobey Maguire?
The good Spider-Man.
Oh my God! Some kid is gonna say that and mean it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened already.
Hey, we're talking about a show. We're talking about.
Oh yeah.
We're talking
yeah.
about
Oh yeah.
Hill
Stranger
House
Things.
hauntings.
the spookening of the Pookie House.
I definitely wanted to pull up the names
Yeah.
because I was like, we can't just slide through this one.
brunette
No, I
A,
know.
B, or
I got
C.
these
Dark,
names.
the dark-haired girl.
Yeah, they're all.
We got gloves, and we got heroin, and we got Stephen King, and
funeral director.
and 6 Feet Under,
and Sugar Boobs.
6 feet.
Who's Sugar Boobs?
I don't know.
I guess is the only one left.
No, it was
Her
just
boobs aren't honkers.
it was just an office reference.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, anyway, so let's talk about this thing instead of spitballing all the way around it.
So, first impressions, I guess, were you guys excited about this when you heard of it? And would you recommend people put their eyeballs on it? Randy, why don't you kick us off?
I actually was not terribly excited about this movie from the get-go. The trailer to me, it was that moment where the mom is talking to the twins in their beds, and the twins are like detailing all the horrible things that might happen to them while they intersperse and have this "Our House is a Very Fine House" or whatever that song is, and the like really slow, somber tunes in the background. It was just very kind of a typical horror movie trailer to me, and it didn't inspire anything exciting for me. But I do definitely recommend it. Having seen it now, like there was a lot of hype around it once it dropped, which I didn't expect. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And I was not disappointed. I think it's totally worth your time.
Cool. Becky, how about you?
I think the first time I heard about it was someone on Facebook posted like a news article that people were literally passing out watching it because it was so scary.
Yeah.
That kind of intrigued me. And then Andy started watching it, so I did. But I definitely recommend it. I think it was really, really good. So,
Cool.
yeah, I really liked it.
Juice, you?
Yeah, I recommend it for sure. I remember when we watched the trailer on this for news, the dialogue like really put me off. I was like, I hope the show is not like this. Even though I thought like kind of the aesthetic looked, pretty good. But so I was like, I don't really know what to get from this because the trailer was like so intense with that dialogue. That bit of dialogue. But it's not like that. It's not like that at all. It plays out pretty smooth. And I would go in. It's at this point, it's like been super hyped. So I would try to avoid that if possible at this point, even though you're, listening to us recommend it to you. Yeah. But it's so hyped that I didn't watch it until after Halloween because I was doing the 31 days. It dropped, I don't know, like a week or two before Halloween. And by that point, I was like, I have to watch this show now. Literally, everyone is saying like it's like some of the best horror of the year. I was like, I have to watch it. And even with that kind of hype, though, I still really enjoyed it. So, yeah. I guess even with the overhype, it's still okay.
But don't let that ruin the expectations for you either. Just kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking forward to it mainly because of Flannigan. His last Netflix joint was Gerald's Game, and I really, really enjoyed the hell out of that. So I was interested to see what he would do with his own TV show. And I like the original property, like the 60s movie or whenever the first one came out. And then also the goofy 90s remake I like in its own right as well.
Well,
never did read the book, but that's because I'm illiterate, Shirley Jackson's novel. Probably should read it. But I'm pleasantly surprised by it. It took me the first few episodes to really kind of get in the groove with it. But I think come episode like 4 and 5, I was all in because you kind of have a solid grasp of the different characters and who they are as children versus the adults. And after you kind of have that foundation going from there, you're just kind of riding the roller coaster and it's good, man. It's definitely worth your watch. Especially even if spooky season's over, I think it's still like any time is a good time to watch it.
Yeah,
It's not-
it is. I
it's
watched
not
it after
season
Halloween.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and it doesn't really. I mean, there is one episode where it is Halloween, but it doesn't play into that episode very much, really.
Yeah.
No, not at all, really.
No, yeah, just as a ding dong ditch kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like scare, but yeah. Other than that, yeah.
They made a Daredevil joke because of Halloween. That's about it.
I
That's
didn't
right,
even
yeah.
process that.
For enthusiastic thumbs up from the Straight Chilling crew. Put your eyeballs on it. Here goes that spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
All right, let's get into it. The Haunting of
I
Hill
guess-
House.
It's not
First
really
and
sup-
foremost, the dad lives in Jacksonville, so that
Yeah.
needs to be.
Move on.
See, the show starts with the reveal that the dad lives in Jacksonville, and it's in the adult side of things when everybody's like a grown up and everything, and they're all miserable. So he's living in literal hell.
So they
And
kind of
also, he immediately
Randy.
leaves Jacksonville. He immediately leaves it and never goes back.
Well,
they could have just like not named where he was living and it would have
Exactly.
been totally
yeah,
fine.
That is
he
true.
plays in zero, except that he has this one line where he's like, "Well, I'm gonna drive down to Orlando and catch a flight," as if there's
Yeah.
not a fucking airport.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the only. Yeah,
I'm gonna drive 2.5 hours. so
that's
that I
true.
can
I'm gonna
fly
drive down to
$1,000
Orlando.
You know how that shit works. He's trying to save himself like $250.
Yeah, it's like literally $2.50.
No, 250.
like
Jackson's
yeah. You save money.
Anyway,
We know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was funny that like I remember being so excited, like Jacksonville, fuck yeah, and never again. It literally it's
what is the-
relevant for like not even 2 minutes.
The best case scenario of Jacksonville being mentioned in any show is probably that, honestly.
Dude, Ash vs. Evil Dead. That's the best.
Actually, you're right. You're right. I
That's
forgot
the
about that.
best.
Anyway,
well, I know that when it started, like the very first scene, the kid's coming out of the room to like go find his sister to help her because she's having like a nightmare. And I immediately assumed the parents were like not good parents, which
Yeah.
was definitely not right because they're like, I don't know if I should get mom and dad, but they seem like kind of nervous about it.
mhm.
But turns out growing up, I think the parents were like great parents the entire
Yeah.
time, which was kind of an initial
Well, that's
twist
kind of
for
the
me.
thing. Like the show is really good at stringing you along with those kind of mysteries. Like
Yeah.
it's like why do they hate their parents who seem like nothing if not the most perfectly loving family of all time?
Yeah, especially when they're young. So
Yeah, when they're
Even
kids.
yeah. I think they did a great job with the dynamics of the whole family in general because they're balancing 5 kids. And like you said, most of them are girls. And even with the mom, like they all have dark hair. So when it flashes back and forth between young kids and
So hard to get a grab on.
adults. Yeah. And the first like episode for sure, first 2, you're like, who are all these dark haired women? Like Randy
Yeah.
had mentioned it, and I was like completely agreed. I was like, I cannot tell who is who. But I thought they did a great job taking how the kids experience the houses and developing them into adult humans, like with their own problems and how they all dealt with it. Like I thought that was done really well. The best part of this to me actually was like the characters and the character development and the interaction between the family.
yeah, and it's interesting. Like some of the kids, you know, Nellie kind of did her own thing and had big spouts of depression, met a great guy. And then Theo, the psychologist glove lady, like went to got her PhD. And she's like, I'm going to go get my fucking PhD. And like
She did.
stormed out of the house and got it. And then one of them became a funeral director, which I think was appropriate too.
Mhm.
And then one was addicted to heroin. So, you know, we can't all win.
Yeah,
but-
literally,
We
like
can't
everybody
all
else was successful except for Luke, which was
Yeah.
such a bummer.
You
Yeah.
got what's his face who decided to start writing spooky novels, and he kind of
Yeah.
took everybody's stories and put them in his book, and you know, basically cashed in on all this like,
Yeah.
horrible shit that happened to them as children, which is sort of a bone of contention amongst the family. That actor, what's his
The
face?
typecast. He's
Yeah,
the typecast cooter.
He is definitely the cooter. That guy was an asshole the entire time, except for when he was a kid and he was like, "You're a great little brother, and that's my job as your big brother." They teach you that in Big Brother school. After that, fucking asshole.
Yeah.
The rest of the time.
I don't know.
The
I
dad
felt
until
like
the end.
I mean, well, here's the
felt
thing.
like he was given a little bit of a bad rap. But that dude is cooter cast. That's the
thing.
problem is it's that fucking guy.
That guy's
Yeah.
every role that actor has had that I have seen him in has always been somebody that is distinctly not likable.
Oh, I've never seen him. I don't know if
in
I've seen
Game
him
of
before.
Thrones, in
Game of
Treme. What else? Like a couple other things, I think. He's always. In fucking The Invitation. He's
yeah.
Oh, that's true, actually.
His name is Michel Huisman.
But I actually think he's
my
like, I think he's a good actor, and I enjoy watching him. But usually, I enjoy watching him because he irritates me. So his characters always do. And in this case, I enjoyed watching him because his character was rich and interesting. So
yeah, it'd be like if like Joffrey was in a bunch of different movies. You'd be
right.
like,
It's hard to separate.
Yeah, but he does a good job. Like he's a good actor.
Yeah, this is
real
the only
tough.
thing I really have enjoyed him in. Because he is a cooter, but for whatever reason, he's I can stomach him in this. I guess because there's so many other great.
You like The
characters.
Invitation?
That's true. Yeah,
But he is definitely a piece of shit in that movie.
He's very
There's no-
bothersome
in
in that movie. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
But in this one, he's written in such a way to where you can understand what his motivations are and be like, okay, I could see a world where I would see that to be the appropriate thing to do or an okay thing to do, even when he's not necessarily in the right. You still kind of you kind of walk along with him a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he deserves to be pissed off, but.
Yeah.
Here was my take. I thought Shirley was the shittiest one of them all. I couldn't
Oh,
stand
we're gonna
fucking
rank the-
Shirley.
Rank the
Power
kid.
bottom.
Well, the thing
list.
was, I mean, like everybody was saying, like, "Oh, Steve was such a piece of shit" or whatever, and he was in some cases. But at the same time, I feel like Shirley was the bigger actual like piece of shit. She treats everyone like shit.
She does. It's really more of like she is
Like-
just constantly mad and like self-righteous all the time.
Steve
I
is
think that's
more,
like, yeah.
Steve is more caught in like the shittiness of other people's expectations. So he seems shitty because Shirley thinks he should be doing a better job, or because Nell thinks he should be doing a better job, when really he's just trying to like make his own way. He does some shitty things, but Shirley like actively treats people like shit. Like Steve doesn't like treat people like
Theo
shit.
does
like
a little
Shirley
bit,
does.
but
Theo
it's
does a
usually more
little bit.
snarky than anything.
I think Steve's big thing is like the dad when they were older adults, like they all treated the dad like shit, but most of them came around. But Steve like kept treating him like shit, and then
Steve like had every axe to grind on his dad, which is like a central.
Yeah, but it's weird because
combat in the
even in that, I'm like, okay, maybe the dad's really screwed up afterwards, but doesn't seem like he did. Besides,
you think like
something
maybe,
big happened.
and that's one of the things this show does brilliantly is while you're navigating that, you're also left because at that time we don't know what actually transpired.
Right.
Like what every episode, this is what one of the things I love about this show is it sort of fulfills the promise of Lost in a way where for a while it does every episode focuses on the flashbacks of one and the journey of one of the siblings or one of the family and it focuses on each of them. For them, the dad, like you don't get to the dad's story until later in the series.
Like last episode.
Next to last, like at least a few episodes out to the end, but still pretty deep into the show. So the question of what he went through and what causes his family to hate him is like completely up in the air the whole time up until like really the very end.
No, the last episode is when Steve goes with him and sees what actually happened. It reminded me of A Christmas Carol, The Ghost of Christmas Past. So like watching themselves go and
so it like those mysteries like the show does a great job. It spans a time lapse and it does something that I usually am not a fan of, which is it creates suspense by not telling you something that you have it's kind of arbitrary. It's just like this is how the person's relating the story to you and he's intentionally leaving something out for you to wonder about. It feels almost like a synthesized mystery. But that said, like the characters are strong enough to where I don't really that's a backburnered thing, like pretty much through their whole character development. So like it's always there, but it's never the thing that I'm like, come on, get to this thing. Like I'm never like too anxious to get there. Like I'm excited to find out, but I feel like confident that in due time it'll rear its head in a pleasing way, and it eventually does, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Like you're never like, tell me what that is. Like you're always happy to see the new perspective, because the first 5 episodes, I like how it does the 5 kids, and it does them like in decrease it, like in their age. So like Steve is the oldest, and Steve is the first episode, and then Shirley, and then Theo, and then Luke, and Nell before. And so it catches you up on like what happened in the past and how everybody's dealing with it. And then switches on episode 6, where it goes into the back half of the show, where it like kind of brings you up into like, how they're going to confront it now. And it still does the flashbacks, but it's more like you're kind of caught up at that point from, when they moved into the house to when they had to like abandon it immediately in the middle of the night. So well, they structured very well.
Yeah. And they give like the parents each an episode as well, where they like show not everything that happened to them, but they show in some detail, like what went on when the kids weren't around. Because that's another thing where, you don't, throughout the rest of the series, you don't really see them have arguments or conversations amongst themselves all that much. And that's really revealing about what's going on, like psychologically, and why, what happened and why people think the way they do about what happened on the night of, which is like the night when, like Becky said, when the dad like takes all the kids out of the house and the mom winds up dead on the floor of the mansion. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's a spoiler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug. Welcome to the show.
I just want to make sure. I couldn't remember like specifically being like, let's drop that spoiler warning. So I was like, oh wait, shit.
Yeah, you immediately started talking about cooters or whatnot.
But it was, I don't know. It was interesting how it like led, because I felt like you knew as a viewer, like each episode kind of what to expect, which was nice, because there was a lot of stuff to cram in, but you kind of knew like, the sequence. But it was really interesting at the end how they like played up the last night, or the night, or whatever they called it. There's some good twists on it too. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, again, like it's almost artificial the way that they withhold the evidence from you a little bit. Or a lot, really. Like a lot of the central mysteries are centered around things that we don't know because they're revealed to us in due time, but it's never a hindrance for the like development of the characters and what they're going through individually in their own lives as adults and as children. The fact that you only get snippets, it's because it's from their perspective. So you only see what Theo's only freaked out about that night because, well, what happened? Her mom wound up dead and all that stuff. But also because her dad touched her without her gloves, and she had a psychological flash of all these horrible things happening. And so it makes sense for us not to know the specifics of why that freaked her out, but just that it happened, and that's why she is the way she is as an adult.
Yeah.
So things like that.
The kind of balance too, because you got 5 kids, and in this house the 2 youngest ones, the twins, are the ones who experience like actually seeing ghosts the most. Mm-hmm. So, but they were so young that when they come up, like obviously like nobody believes them. Like, oh, you were like, they're like 4 or 5 years old, and everybody, even when they're young, just discounts them. And then you have the 2 oldest kids who just are like, oh, our mom was crazy. It was a psychological thing. Our dad is, just kind of a shitty dad. And they have like their logic. And then Theo's like right in the middle, to where she didn't really see any ghost either, but she's got this like special power where she can like touch shit. So she knows like things are fucked up.
It's fucking rogue. It's crazy.
So she's like right in the middle, to where there's like a balance between like, yeah, our dad is shitty for not telling us, but also there was some fucked up shit going on.
Yeah, the twins kind of have this connection too, this like psychological connection where they can feel what each other is feeling, and they don't have to communicate about it at all. Even when they're adults, like living in different places, they kind of have that connection, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that episode when when Nell dies, and And you think that, Luke, like when it's not his episode, like you think like, oh, he's just like high on heroin or whatever. But really, he's like experiencing like death, like a
Rigor
physical
mortis,
death. Yeah, because his sister is dead and like he's cold and his like joints are locking up. That was really cool.
It also plays perfectly because with like the idea of coming down, the idea of detoxing, like that. I loved that. Like, not only is he like, his whole character is so well architected, I think, where he's this kid who saw some shit he could not have could not understand. He went into deep depression. He started using coke and doing not coke, using meth, whatever it was.
Oh,
heroin.
But chugging booze, I think. Is what
I think he was Tampaxing vodka. But
yeah, I know someone who did that for real.
Of
course you do.
Randy, cut it out. You can't keep doing that.
It was a frat bro.
But hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom. I think like his whole arc, like to make him the one of like a twin with a quote unquote twin thing, which is basically a superpower also in this context, where he's feeling things without having any knowledge of what's going on with his sister. Sort of, I think that's like a stroke of brilliance. And what you eventually find out, like we all said, like at the end of that episode, it's like, oh shit, what's going on is he's going through fucking rigor mortis. He doesn't know his sister's dead, but he's feeling the physical repercussions of it as if he were dead too. And it has nothing to do with his addiction, not directly anyway. It's great.
Steve tells him that, that Nell's dead and that she committed suicide, and he kind of like sits there for a minute and he's like, no, it wasn't suicide. And that's like the end of the episode, but he can tell that it wasn't, which is pretty cool. But it was like the house claimed another member of the family, essentially. They got the mom, and then Nell goes, and that's sort of like her funeral is sort of where the whole family comes back together again for the first time in however many years. They're all in the same room. And what was that?
That's episode 6. Oh man,
dude,
which
episode
is incredible.
That episode is really, because that's also, not only is it Nell's funeral where the family finally comes back together all as adults, but it's also the storm. There's when they do the flashbacks of the house, there's like this really bad storm, and that's when like shit like really starts to get kind of wild in the house as well.
That's like a turning point for them both in the current timeline and in the past timeline.
Yeah.
And they're both related to the storm, which you'd flit in and out of seamlessly through that show. I believe that whole episode, if I'm not mistaken, was done in 5 shots.
Holy shit.
5 extended shots, or primarily in those 5 shots, one of which was 17 minutes long.
And you said you saw behind the scenes, and they're literally just like throwing people in and out, and like
it's not like there's not that much trickery going on besides literally moving walls around and changing actors in and out. Like, they have this great moment where the dad walks in as an adult and you pan away from the adult children to see him. And he's like, oh, wow, it's good to see you. And he's like all flustered, and he pans back around, and like all the children are played by their child actors.
That's
and then
such a great moment.
Without stopping, it just spins right back around, and they're right back to their regular age. And then they show like his Nell as a child in the coffin the first time he sees it.
Oh my God.
It's really like simple, but simple seeming, at least from viewer perspective, but really complex cinematography to tell things that otherwise you would have just had to have him say, like, when I look at her, I see her as her good self. Like something that would have seen Hackney, to actually have it displayed and shown rather than told was fucking great. And it was done so expertly.
Yeah.
And by that episode, it's episode 6. So like, the kids like intimately at this point. So like when you're seeing it, like you experience those feels too. 'Cause you're just like, oh my God, like there's the kids like that, I've grown to sympathize with and, be scared for and care about. And God, the Nell in the coffin as a kid, like that shit, the fucking episode is like one of the greatest fucking episodes of TV I've ever seen.
Yeah, really. And like, honestly, I said this in their Slack channel. I think it's probably one of the better taken on its own merits. I think it could stand as one of the best pieces of horror of the year, easy, and like stands way taller than a lot of the horror movies we've seen this year.
Just
Top
the
10.
episode or the show?
Just that episode, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the show, certainly, I feel pretty strongly about as a whole. But that episode is so well done and so so stylish, and it breaks the mold in a few ways. First of all, it's a bottle episode. It happens in 2 bottles simultaneously, that being the Hill House and the mortuary.
Yeah.
But it's still a bottle episode. Nothing happens outside of those areas. It's all, which breaks form with the rest of the show. There's flashbacks, but it's only to the other bottle and back. And then you've got the idea that it's not focused on any one character. This episode is about the family dynamic and how they fit together instead of how they live alone or how they live separately or how they grew apart. It's how they fucking fit as a mechanism as one. And it fucking works, man. Yeah. From there, it's like I don't think any of the other episodes are as good, but I think that the ending is pretty close.
I think
I think we need to hop into the. Oh, sorry, Bex.
Oh, I was just gonna say, jumping back just a little bit. I think this show does a really good job, like the whole family dynamic, and like we said, like the dad panning to and from and seeing the kids. It just like I don't know if they had like a psychologist on board or whatever, but like there's really good analogies and I don't know, lots of like feel good or like sympathizing moments, I think, which is interesting. And I think we talked about, Andy and I over dinner last night or something, about like how each of the children are supposed to represent a stage of grief.
Yeah.
The grieving process, which is kind of interesting.
That actually started as a fan theory, but has been confirmed by Mike Flannigan that the 5 kids each represent one of the 5 stages of grief as they used to be, which apparently is outmoded now, but still.
But yeah.
Wait, what are they? What are the 5 stages?
I think it's here. I'm going to look it up because it's like there's actually
I got this.
That actually interesting to know.
Steve would be denial.
Steven is denial because he completely denies that anything supernatural happened.
Yeah.
Anger is
Shirley
one.
is anger because she's just pissed at the world for ever questioning anything that she does or thinks. Theo is bargaining because she kind of just sets it all aside and just doesn't look at it. And it's not denial necessarily, but she's just going to live her life on her own terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bargaining.
That's her. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And then Luke is depression for obvious reasons because he's like turned to the fucking needle. And then Nell is acceptance.
Yeah.
Because she never questions what happened to her. She knows that something horrible happened to her, and her whole adult life is centered around the idea of her night terror or her nightmares, sleep paralysis, where she literally has to just sit there and ride it out and accept that it's happening and then get to the other side of it. Yeah. So her whole character is geared towards acceptance as well. And then eventually she accepts her fate that the house is not going to leave her alone.
She goes willingly.
Yeah, she goes. She accepts it as her fate, even if there was a way for her to get out of it.
That's pretty cool.
And I don't like. I think I'm not usually available a lot, but a little bit of like almost like a spiritual feel to the whole thing. Like by the end, like the very last episode, after you see all the things that happen and how everyone deals with it, it does have like a very interesting.
Well,
makes you like I don't know. I've been like holding on to it for like a whole day now, like really thinking about it. We spent all day painting a portable for children, so I had a lot of time to think about things. And I was thinking about, I don't know, it's interesting.
It's not haunted.
Even,
I don't know. I think we do need to talk about the ending because I feel like that's so far from what I've seen. That's the most divisive element of this show for people, which it seems like it might be in this group as well, because I actually do have some problems with the ending.
Okay, we can go there. Do we want to jump
in? Sure. Yeah. Is that
yeah?
Just because I feel like we're creaming over the show a lot, and I feel like it might be nice to bring in like some things because I think there are like I have some notes.
Here we go.
Like hang on.
Here we go
with the ending, but also just
enough in this show.
in general, let me pull up my. So the ending, to me, conflicts with a lot of what the first half of this show sets up. And I'll bring it like a couple things. So what happens is there's this red room that they can never open as kids. And it turns out that they were spending a lot of their time in there. And actually going back, it is cool to see because there's always a red item in the room. Like Shirley specifically, I noticed that she does her photo album. The photo album is red. And it's kind of like the door or whatever. So every time they're in there, there is like a hint that they're in there. I don't know what was in the treehouse. The treehouse was the weirdest thing.
So the room presents itself as a different room to each kid, basically.
Yeah. Essentially to keep them there so that it can like digest them is how it's presented. It's presented in a couple of different ways. At one point they say like every house needs a heart. So it's like presented as a heart. But then I think they even specifically say like, no, it's like a stomach. It's like keeps you there and it works on you.
Yeah.
While you're there. Yeah. So that's kind of a cool concept, but the problem I have with that is the ending of this show from several different fronts, because we didn't even talk about the Dudleys, who are like housekeepers of the house, who've been there like a long time.
Groundskeeper, yeah.
But it presents it as like this happy ending where the mom, the dad, and Nell all die and they get to like be together. And even as the Dudleys get old, he like carries his wife into the house, kind of like American Horror Story style. Like, oh, once you die there, you get to hang out there.
We want to back up for a second on that. When the mom kills herself, she also kills their daughter, the Dudley's daughter, Abigail.
Well, up until that moment, we really thought was
a ghost
specter already.
Yeah, we thought that Abigail was like not real, and it turns out she is real. And the mom kills her, and then the Dudleys come to the house when the dad, like they come to the house, see the dead mom, and then they find their dead daughter, and that's why the Dudleys came back to the house to live on, so they could like be with the daughter.
Yeah,
I think that's important to note too.
But that like the idea that he like brings his wife in there, and even that like they get to it's not like literally from the first episode, Steve does this monologue and he's talking about like whoever lives there like walks alone. Like he specifically says that, and it's reinforced several times throughout the show. Like whoever's in the house, like they're isolated, they're alone. So the idea that like Nell gets to die, and even when we see Nell, she's like in this terrible state. One is somehow, which was a little convoluted, that she was the bent neck lady, which I saw coming once they had set it up so much. But there's times in the house where like the bent neck lady is creeping. She's not falling through time. Like there's a time where she's like creeping on Nell, like while she's in bed. Mm-hmm. And I thought it had a little bit of a lost aspect to where they included a lot of these elements to keep you intrigued, and they worked. There were a lot of things, but there were a lot of things that they never really were able to fulfill their promise, as it will. There were a lot like the dogs. Like the dogs never was a thing. The barking dogs at night.
I mean, I don't think that's a promise. I don't think that the show ever promises that it'll explain every aspect of the house, just what happens to the family. And the dogs don't really play in beyond that, the fact that they're a spooky element of this house. There
was still a lot of that. Even like the whole, like, you're sensitive and everybody's sensitive. Like, it never really delved into like what, like Theo, it's fully developed. You know, like what Theo's thing is. The mom, it's never Shirley. Like, they're like, oh, Shirley, she sleep talks or whatever. And that's never like a thing. But it's little tidbits, like that's at the beginning of the show. That's literally in the first episode where Shirley is like sleep talking. And then it's mentioned again in episode 3. And you're like, okay, well, they each like have their own part to play in this like sensitivity thing and how it interacts with the house. And maybe that's why they're so tied to the house. That's kind of what I was thinking a little bit. And that just it's never like explored with Nell. It's never explored with Shirley. It's never really explored with the mom, other than she just gets these crazy migraines. But I thought the happy ending, I don't know. I didn't really care for it personally.
I didn't think he was all that happy.
Yeah, I agree.
We were both like kind of crying. So.
Oh, really? Like,
yeah.
And
I thought it was very moving. Like, it's not that it was a sad ending. Well, here's the thing. I think the ending is appropriate. First of all, yeah, the beginning of the series is Steven talking about how everyone who walks there walks alone, but he ends the series with everyone who walks here walks together, which to me, that is his growth. That's a showing of his growth as a character. His dad told him, "You've always had it wrong about this house. This is what it is." And then you're like, yeah, the fact that the whole end point of the show is about grief in general. Like, it's about suffering and what life is, which is that it can't all be roses. You can't stay children forever. You can't be protected from the outside world by your parents. You can't protect your children from the outside world. You can't do those things because life is going to happen unless you do something horrible like the mom ends up doing. And she went insane trying to keep their children from growing old, and then eventually like wound up dead herself because her insanity drove her there. The house made that happen. Now, that still tells a good story, I think. I think that the end point is showing not so much that they make this distinction where it's like, yeah, fear is the relinquishing of logic and facts and embracing something that you can't understand. And then the show ends with them saying, but so is love. And this is the idea that time is all happening at once, like in one fell swoop. It's not linear. They go over that circle as well. Yeah, it's flat circle theory here. And it's like, but that all I think plays into it. Like the ending isn't that actually everything turned out all right. The ending is shit happens in your life and you lean on the people that you love and trust to get you through those things, and eventually they'll be gone too, and you'll have to lean on other people for it.
Yeah, I guess it's more of the aspect of the house, because like the mom,
the mechanics
dad,
of the house, right?
Yeah, the mom, dad, and Nell all like chilling there when clearly like Theo touched her, and then she was like, "There is nothing. She is living." And even like in the parlor, like Nell, she kind of reflects back to that night where she disappeared in the house, where she's like, "I'm standing here and nobody can hear me," and that's like her torture. She's standing watching her entire family, she's dead, and nobody can hear her. That's what Theo experiences. But then at the end she's like, yeah, I'm just chilling my mom, dad, like, you know, like that's it's not consistent to me. And the Dudleys get to like experience like their happiness together. Another thing. Well, the other thing, like, I didn't understand about the Dudleys, too, is, like, this house was able... So they're like, oh, we never stay on the house after these certain episodes. So they used to, like, spend time at the house at night. They got scared, and then they started staying on the edge of the property and never going in there at night. Okay, fucking the whole family moves away. They're, like, in different states, and this house is able to pursue them and pull them back in to finish consuming them, as it were. But the Dudleys, just because they don't go there at night, are able to escape that torture.
I think the Dudleys escape that torture because their heads are on so straight about what happened. And also, I think it's implied at the end that they pay regular visits to the house to be with their specter of their daughter. Yeah. Like, I think that, like, that's why they don't destroy that. That's why they convince Hugh not to destroy that house.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't, like Becky said, I don't think that's necessarily a happy ending. It depends on your perspective of it. But yeah, like their love for their daughters or their children, one of them was stillborn, who died on property when the mom was pregnant. Like, her desire to be with her children is so strong that she wants to live out her life and then die there. She doesn't kill herself there. She doesn't go insane, but she does sort of relinquish her right to an afterlife that goes beyond. The reason that Theo didn't see anything when she touches the corpse of her sister is because her sister's soul is at the house. That's or whatever. Her spirit is at the house. It has,
but not always. Like, sometimes she's sitting there watching her family at the funeral parlor.
I mean, the house can also reach its tendrils out there trying to convince these people to come back, like it does eventually with Luke.
But from the audience perspective, like, they don't know that. They don't know that Nell... Only we as an audience know that Nell is there watching them, and they even do a point to where they do the whole storm thing where Nell has to, like, exposition us. Like, I was standing right here and you couldn't see me, and then at the end of that episode, like, there's Nell standing there watching them. Like, they never, like, think that, like...
Nell is not.
They're
in her
not
body.
aware of that though.
Nell is not in her body. Nell is a spirit, and she's traveling to her own funeral, basically, in order to keep her parent, her family, her other family, from falling prey to the same thing that she did. But then once you get to the end of
her mom's already dead, so like she would then be with her mom, but she's alone.
But she's worried for her family. She doesn't want, like, she fell prey to this house, and she's with her mom. So like on some degree, I think that she's happy about that, and it's shown at the end that that's the case. But she doesn't want the same thing to happen to her living family. She also has that perspective. So she uses whatever. She goes through the further to get to her own funeral, not through her body, but through her own like powers that are inhabited by the house, that are imbued by the house, in order to prevent the house from doing the same thing to her family. But all that to say, I don't think it really, like, the specifics of how the house work, I think falls very far secondary to the journey of the characters. And I don't think that it's a happy ending. I think it's, again, it's centered around grieving. It's an allegory for the grieving process.
It is. And that's good writing. Yeah.
That's good writing. And the metaphor.
The show is well written.
Like I don't need to know everything about the Dharma Initiative. You know, I don't need to have every answer. It's not a science fiction show. I don't need to know about the blah, blah, blah device that makes it possible to scream in space or whatever. It doesn't matter.
I think that my whole thing is the show presents the house, which is obviously the element of this. Like the characters I said, like, are the strongest thing. Like how they react and interact and grow is the most important. But the house is obviously a huge part as well. And I just feel like, and I understand why, but it's like to keep you intrigued and to keep you scared. This is a haunting house type of deal. It's presented in one way, and it feels just like on the very last episode, even in the last 20 minutes, it flips that from what you've experienced for the other 9 episodes and 40 minutes. And it just doesn't quite feel consistent to what I've been shown so
well, it
far.
It is not a twist, but it is a development that you don't necessarily see coming. That's true, but I think it's for the better, because what it's showing is that bad things can happen to you, but there are ways to continue to be happy. No matter what the bad circumstance is, there are ways to overcome it, is the idea. Like grief, again, it's grief. It's your mom died. Your mom died. Your dad's lying to you about it your whole life, and your family hates you for one reason or another. Why did this happen? You eventually find out the mechanics of what happened, but why this happened, because life happens. Because like sometimes bad things are going to come into your life. Sometimes it's going to be an evil fucking house that wants you dead, and it's going to fuck your whole life apart. It's going to fuck your family apart. But the only thing that's keeping you apart from your family is yourself, like, and your own limitations, or your own inability to grapple with your own limitations or what actually happened or whatever. Each character kind of has their own path that they have to go through in order to, like, literally they have to go through their own like delusions of and like their worst moments, their worst fears, in order to get to the other side. And they're helped along by the person who has already gone through this, which is Nell, and are able to overcome it. So I think that the happiness and the ending that you're feeling is not so much an absence of horror, so much as it is a relinquishing to the idea that this is what life is.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, and you can either lie down and die, or you can fucking ride it out. That's what I took from it. And like there was brought up in the Slack channel, the actor who plays Luke apparently came up with this theory, because here's a theory of how the Red Room works. He thinks that potentially everybody, the whole family, none of them got out, and were instead shown another delusion of the house. And it's apparently a very popular theory. And the reason, like the evidence given, is that in all of the little horror journeys that each of the individual characters take through their Red Room, basically going through all of their fears and inhibitions, where it tries to trick them into killing themselves or just lying down and dying in the house.
Pretty much anytime they're in there is what it is.
Right.
Like even as children, there's a red item.
Right. There's a red item that like a significant item that is deep red, probably the same shade of red, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
that
it's
is
like the door,
indicating that you're in the red room in some way. And during the outro, you see a red icing on a cake for Luke. So the idea being that, oh, okay, so here's your indicator that they're still in the red room. And you can say that if you want, but to me, I think that completely undercuts the sacrifice that their dad made. And I think it like ruins the emotional journey.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of people seem to like that theory, and power to them, I guess. Like you can definitely read it that way. But for me, it's like the dad made a sacrifice of lying down and dying to get his kids out. I don't think that there's a great emotional payoff for then pulling the rug out and saying, nope, didn't happen.
I think I more prefer not necessarily that they're in the red room, but that it's more ambiguous.
I'm okay with ambiguity.
That you could consider that maybe they're in the red room, or you could also consider that they got out. I think I like that more as a either or. Like I think I like that the most.
I like that they leave it ambiguous. You know me. Like I like it when a movie allows you to come to your own conclusion. But all I'm saying that for my part, the conclusion that was presented would be kind of fucked up for me if it turned out that none of the sacrifices, none of the hardship that they went through at the end of the series in order to pull each other out, that none of it happened. And in fact, they're all still being preyed upon in the red room and to death. I mean, it doesn't work for me as well. So personally, I would choose that ending, the ending that we got, the more overt ending.
Yeah. And it just seems like to fit. And that's the thing is like, how do you feel about the family versus how do you feel about the house? Because it seems to fit more consistently, like I said, with what we're shown, that the house is able to trap them there because literally the house is able to trick Luke into shooting poison into his body when he doesn't even want to. It's not like he's tempted, so it's tempting him with heroin, which there's really just poison in the needle, and he like refuses it. So he refuses the temptation. It's not even like he was tricked into doing it, but it just does it anyways. Even though he's able to refuse the temptation, he still ends up with a needle of poison in his arm. So it's like the house is powerful. Like it's able to kill people even against their will. So for them to be like, so the idea that they're still stuck there, I guess, fits more with the idea of the powerfulness and what we're shown from the house. But the other ending fits more with what we're shown from the family and their ability to come together.
The family, the house isn't the only powerful thing, though. That like even supernaturally, Nell has superpowers. The mom has superpowers, and eventually the dad sacrifices his life and his spirit to the house in order to make the deal that gets the kids out. And like, so they have power there too. And Nell is what brings him out, not necessarily his choice. You're right. Like it's ambiguous again, but I think for my part, it's like, I think that speaks again to the idea of supporting each other through something. And you don't need to be next to somebody to feel supported by them. You just have to know you can just remember somebody and feel supported by their memory. I don't know.
Cool. I kind of want
good scares in this.
Yeah, no, I did want to bring up like some of the ghosties in this show. Like, so we've been harping a lot on the family and like the inner working of the house and shit like that. But like the actual like scares that go on are like pretty well crafted. Like you mentioned the bent neck lady, which is probably like the most notorious one throughout the show, which ends up being Nell as like a reveal on her episode, which I didn't see that coming. And when it did happen, I was pretty surprised. Like the scene when her freaking husband dies and the bent neck lady's like hanging in their little apartment bedroom and she's having her sleep paralysis and can't move. That's like a really intense, emotional, like well crafted, spooky scene. I think Flannigan's like pretty good at making shit like that. There's also like a little bit of gore, not too much, but like when the dad cuts his hand in the fan, kind of reminded me a little bit of Gerald's Game. There's like some hand mutilation going on in that film as well.
That reminded me of Oculus, where like they could never tell like what was going on
when she like eats the light bulb in that film.
Yeah, she thinks it's an apple. She eats the light bulb, but then she doesn't really either. I can't remember if she actually did or not. Like I don't know, but like yeah, he thought like the fan was off. He was even like, and he later says like, oh, you know, I just wasn't paying attention. But he was like looking at the fan. It was off. And he sticks his hand in there anyway.
The kid was supposed to unplug it. He ended up like thinking that Steve just failed to unplug it.
Yeah,
Steve feels guilty because of that, even though he thought anyway.
Steve. There's also the like tall floaty ghosty that wears the hat that the kid gets. Which doesn't Tall Boy, is that the name? Tall Boy?
I'm calling him Tall Boy.
I like it. Tall Boy. He's a tall PBR. That shit, I love the imagery of that thing floating around the hallways. Fucking great.
Just he's hovering. I love that.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a ghost in like every scene of the movie.
That's pretty much at any point, not at any point, but like there are hidden ghosts throughout the entire show.
That's cool.
Within the house,
there's a ton
in the backgrounds of like every episode has at least a couple that I've seen or I've been told about or I've looked at on the internet. You can. Like I saw a few for sure, but they don't like linger on them. They don't call attention to them. They're just there. And if you see them, you're left to question whether or not it was a trick of the light or if it was your own imagine. You know, it's great. I love that. There's one in particular that I caught that really, I was like, rewinding and playing before I knew that this was like a thing that the show did really, before I realized that it was an ongoing thing. I was doing this for that scene where the dad, where Hugh is trying to fumigate the basement, and he hears the scratching. He's like, fuck this, I'm gonna pull this, and he starts pulling the bricks out. In the background you can see a fucking little girl's face staring at him.
Oh shit,
it's fucking great. And it's like split seconds, you know, it's real quick. And I don't know, I love that shit.
That's the interesting thing about this show too. It's like most of the time you don't know what's real and what's not, like the dog's barking,
and that's
or like I don't know, and even like the parents see the ghost too, but you never know like what's real and what's not, which is really interesting.
And that's one of the things I like about the way the house works. The fact that you don't hear the dogs barking or whatever, or you like the dogs barking, you don't get any reveal about them except there are no dogs. Like that's speaks to the oldness and the body count in this house.
But then we've heard like I think the girls like the dogs are barking outside and you don't hear it, and then in a later scene we both are like, what the fuck, there's dogs barking outside sometimes.
And then you have the clock repair guy that you eventually find out isn't really there, and
you've got the Mr. Hill or whatever who like barricades himself. He bricks himself into the wall. And they end up finding his corpse in there, which is freaking great. They've got that horrific scene. I kind of hated this because it's so gross. But like the kittens that they find, that end up dying. They're just like dying and rotting, and it's just like one of them like comes back to life for a second, and like it's just I fucking hate that shit. It's gross. There's another scene where there's like a ghost crawling through the morgue, and like it ends up like smashing their forever home model thing.
Oh no! Yeah, I thought you were talking about the scene where Luke as a child goes down the dumbwaiter.
Holy shit!
He goes down the dumbwaiter and like he's just looking around this hidden room that he doesn't know is there. It turns out to be a Prohibition era thing. And something starts crawling towards him in like flickering flashlight, and they're not music cueing this thing. It's just kind of happening, and he is a child screaming. Like these kid actors. Hats off to these fucking kids.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they all did a great job. Like they're believable as kids, which is great. Like, cause you know, like they're not the best actors, but really they are. I don't know. Like they don't feel like kids doing an amazing job acting. They just feel like kids.
Especially the twins. Like,
they're so
Luke,
little anyways. Yeah.
They're so like, that Luke actor in particular really like blew me away in terms of being able to be so seamless. Like I worked as a summer camp counselor. I know what kids are like. That's a kid. Like that's how a kid would react to things. That's like, it's great. I just love the way they did that. And his scene, that scene where like Theo drops him into that underground, that basement room. It's so good. It's so the thing crawling at him, like the monsters themselves are, sometimes they just look like people, sometimes they look like just like you and I, and sometimes they look like rotting or like an elongated tall boy or whatever.
So that's what you look like then.
But they don't explain where the tall boy came from. They don't explain where the dogs come from. There's not enough. There's no reason to go into every ghost that exists.
You got the flapper from the 20s that's in there.
Right. She's the only one, the screaming Mimi's lady.
Yeah,
but she kind of coaches the mom into becoming
and because she's established to have been insane in life. Like she wasn't just insane. She was from an insane asylum.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Earlier in the series they bring her up, and you kind of have to remember her name, but
okay.
It turns out she existed earlier on, and they said she was an insane person that Mr. Hill married, and she was very beautiful, but she was crazy, and so that's basically what happened. And it's implied that she killed her children in a similar fashion.
I think that's going to be the second season.
Speaking of which,
we're not happy about the second season.
I'm not happy about the second season.
Is it definitely happening?
I thought they said that it wasn't related. I thought they said it was going to be like American Horror Story style.
I think the house is probably going to be the constant.
The house is in the title.
I guess that's true.
For me, the house is inextricable from the story of this family.
Yeah, that's true. I don't like that either.
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool, honestly.
Yeah,
really?
It's cool, but this is such a good. I just hope they don't fuck it up like fucking.
The thing is, it runs the risk of over-explaining the house.
True.
And ruining the metaphors that exist by having us being really pedantic about the way that the Red Room works or whatever. I kind of think that the story works on its own. I think it stands so strongly on its own with this family and the house being an allegory for all the darkness in people's lives. Like, I don't think that it needs to go back to the well, but of course it made a ton of money, and of course they're going to, and it kind of bums me out, to be honest.
I would certainly much prefer that they just did like American, like this guy's good at horror, obviously.
Yeah, give him a new series. Let him adapt something different.
Yeah, even if it's got a similar kind of premise.
I'm down. I think there's more there's plenty more that they could explore in the house, and obviously there's a ton of things going on that weren't explained, and I don't really care that they weren't explained, but I wouldn't mind seeing that crazy lady from the 20s and a little bit more about her. And this season's always going to be there. If the next season sucks, then you still got this one. It's still good.
No, you're right, and that's my methodology with circumventing being angry at all things that are over past their welcome, The Simpsons. But
we just hope they didn't the family was the big thing we were talking about. That would be too much.
To me it feels really insular, and it's not like Breaking Bad, but there's a clear continuation ready to happen. Yeah. It's not like American Horror Story where it's a clear separation to something new, or Channel Zero or something. Almost, I feel like the more that they dig into it, you'll find out some interesting tidbits. But I'd rather they write a book where it's here are some thoughts we had while we were making the show about how the house works, and I'll read the book. But I don't necessarily need to see a whole series where they sort of redefine what the house is and try to change our expectations of it again.
I'm very curious. I would like to see a Boardwalk Empire meets House on Haunted Hill, or show me all that Prohibition shit. All the flappers and the Prohibition. I'm down. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, I would be okay with that as long as if they don't try to involve the family, the bent neck lady's creeping because
I hope they would not.
Time is circular or whatever.
The thing is, I'm worried that it's only a matter of time before they're okay, well, this season we're going to go to before the house was even built. It's on an Indian burial ground, and it's in the 1800s. And John Smith walks in to frame and says, "This is where I'll build my home." And then witches show up or something. We don't need to know why. We don't need to know why the house is evil. I think that if you go that route, it completely undercuts the theme of bad shit happens in your life. This is just dark shit as a blanket statement that happens in this season. And no, it doesn't negate it, but I think it's better without.
it really just goes back to show that The Vitch is really just a prequel to this movie.
Don't you say Vitch. Get off this show. What are you doing?
I always think that when I see it.
You said the Veach
You're
once
fired.
recently, and I was like, what are you talking about?
The Vitch.
Oh, man. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we rate this thing?
I'm pretty good. That was a solid.
Now we've covered
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about this for days, but I think we've touched all the major parts of it anyways, at least.
Yeah, all the parts.
Oh, touching all them parts. Let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Randy Ganny, G. Landy, how do you feel?
Well, if we review TV shows on our podcast, it's usually a pretty good sign that we all loved it. I definitely loved it, and I like it in its current form. The things that I would nitpick about it are just that. They're very nitpicky. Like, okay, there were a few line readings that I didn't particularly like from a few of the kids. There were a few moments where I could get overly engrossed with how the house works, but I think I'm repulsed by that a little bit, but because
Damn.
That's a very strong word.
that's maybe too strong a word, but I push that aside because it doesn't interest me as much as the emotional story and the weight that's going into what's going on in this family, and I think it undercuts that or undersells it a little bit. So all my nitpicks would actually probably serve to make it worse, I think, for the most part. So with that in mind, I'm happy to give this a 5. I think this is a 5 for me.
Damn, Randy, 5.
I really love this, and I'm gonna be real protective of it when season 2 comes along. I'll definitely give it a chance, especially if Mike's still at the helm, which I'm assuming he will be. But I just hope it doesn't go real sideways, trying to overextend itself.
Fair.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Becky, how do you feel out of 5?
I really liked it too. Sorry that in the background, our neighbor is every night calls her cat in, and she's calling her cat in. Alex, come here.
Get in here, kitty.
The cat's name is Alex.
Yeah, the cat's name's Alex. Anyways, this movie was very good, or show. It felt like a long movie. I don't know. I think it was very well written. I liked how you could go into like the grief thing, and I just felt like there was a good underlying message. I usually try not to look too far into high school lit class, like what does the yellow couch mean in the green room or whatever. But I feel like you could quickly put those pieces together in this, which I really liked.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely was emotional a few times. It was very impactful. Made me think about my own family. Like my mom didn't murder the neighbor and then kill herself in her house, but it just made me think about relationships and all that, and kind of cause and effect actions and all that. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I'd give it a 4.75. The only big red flag Andy and I talked about, he didn't mention it, was I thought the dad, Hugh, all the characters matched up pretty well from being a kid to an adult, but his character, the adult dad version and the younger dad version just did not match up the acting wise. So that was kind of a flaw, but everything else felt pretty realistic except for that. Not a huge deal, but yeah, some of the acting wasn't great.
No, that's true. Actually, I did forget that. There's not.
Randy, you already went.
There's not enough of an age gap between those two actors for me to be able to comfortably say all right, he's just aged so much that he looks completely different.
Yeah. But even the kid
I don't know why
actors-
they didn't just try to old him up.
That's
Maybe
what I thought.
They did, and it just didn't work because a lot of those aged up makeups are really shitty, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But the kid
Now that
actors,
you mentioned it was a little off. Yeah. I mean, even personality wise, but I gave it a little bit of, this dude's been living now 20 years with the ghost of his dead wife, which is really just a figment of his imagination. So that kind of had an effect.
Emotional trauma of his own.
But even just facial expressions and stuff just didn't match. But it was a big deal.
Facial expressions are what got me too.
Yeah. I give it a 4.75, but almost a 5. So if I was Drew on the show, I'd give it a 4.95.
376.
Weird thing. Yeah.
Cool. Juice out of 5. How do you feel?
I'm gonna give this a 5-star as well. when I watched this for the first time, I was just completely engrossed by it, and it scared the poop out of me. It really did. I was like bitching out on the Slack channel. I was like, I'm watching it like, oh my God. But I'm such a tension bitch anyway. So you know.
Daddy's little attention.
I thought you said attention, bitch. It's like Bill, Tom Cruise things.
But I really liked it. And the things I brought up was really just discussion wise, because it really is. And this is just another sign of the great show. I feel like once the show has ended, even though the ending did feel like a little just like off for me, I still was fine with it. I didn't hate it like it seemed like maybe I did when I was bringing things up, but that you can bring things up like that you can kind of pick at all of these different aspects of it is just makes it a just even more powerful show, I think, because when you take it home with you, when you want to think about it, when you want to pick it apart, that just means that it was a great piece of work. So I'm giving it a 5-star. And can we include this since it's a show? Can it be on our top 10 of the year, or are we excluding? I
think it's kind of unfair because this is the only show we've talked about the whole year. So it'd be like 9 movies in this show if you put it on your top 10. It seems kind of like its own thing. But I mean, if everybody else really wants it to be a part of it, then what? I
should know. Like, it could be like top 10 horror of the year. Just because this, just as a piece of like horror work, like this is like really great. But it has 10 hours to become that, which could be its detriment, though. I mean, to fill 10 hours,
it still
like
wasn't.
American Horror Story frequently fails because
exactly. Yeah.
It still wasn't quite as long as Suspiria 2018, though. So that's good.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, I saw you recommending people have drinks before that movie, and I'm like, this guy, the guy who couldn't keep his eyes open because he had one beer.
Hey, you know why? It was a long day.
You know why The Haunting of Hill House was so good? It's because I paired it with a good beer. That's really the only reason it hit 5-star. I made a good beer choice.
I really love this show because it reminds me of the lasagna I was eating at the time. It was really delicious.
Oh my God.
This is a delicious show.
Living deliciously. Cool. I'm going to give this, I'm going to give it a 4.5. I don't know.
From the Russian judge, of course.
Repulsive.
I liked it. I mean, basically everything you guys said, but I mean, the main thing that really makes this show work is the family dynamic and like how well the characters are written and developed. It's fucking great. It's kind of strange almost that the house and like the scary stuff is secondary to that because it's like a spooky haunted house show. But I've always felt that like great characters are what make a story worthwhile, and this story is fucking great because
that's why Halloween is so
because the characters are great. Oh my God. So I don't know.
Suspiria is great.
It's one of those things that I already want to go back and rewatch because I know I missed the vast majority of all like the hidden ghosties, and I want to kind of see if I can spot some of those. But it's just like so well crafted, man. I can't imagine how long it would take to write this show, and then not to mention the freaking set design. And like they built the entire house. And so that, yes, like you could walk into it and walk completely around the whole thing, and that's how they were able to
like open that shit up for tours.
That would be fucking cool, yeah. But that's how they were able to do these long tracking shots, going from room to room and stuff. I mean, they really had to map this stuff out to a degree that I'm not aware of because I'm not a filmmaker. But like, I can't even imagine how many hands were on deck to make some of these shots work. Yeah. And the child actors killed it. I mean, there's just a lot going on here. Even if it wasn't like all tied up perfectly in the end, and it didn't feel like it was perfect in the end, but the thing that the through line again is the family. And at the end, there's like so much heart in what the father does and like sacrificing himself for his children and all that. And that just like kind of makes the rest of it fall away and not really matter all that much to me, even though it's not as grounded of an ending as I think the show probably could have been, but it's nitpicky, man. Everything else is just so fucking fantastic, and I love the ghosts that they created for this. I really do. It's just like it's banging on all cylinders. 4.5 for me. That's going to make our aggregate a 4.8.
Can I
Yeah.
Sorry.
So wait, what kept it from the 5?
Just sort of the way it didn't all come together in the end. It felt maybe a little bit forced, a little ham-fisted in the end for me. Like the little room with like the mom and her kids, like the way she wants to keep them all in this little room and have tea. It's like it felt kind of like a lost ending almost. Like what? This doesn't. It feels off. I don't know.
Like I said, there was something off for me too. Like when it ended, I was like I was able to accept it, but I was like, I didn't feel the way I felt the rest of the show.
Sure, yeah.
It was a feeling thing, but yeah, when you break it down, like when Randy said, like, oh, the grief and overcome, like. Then it does feel like nitpicky, like, oh, my feelings were off, but it's hard to explain. Yeah.
It's worth a rewatch. I think it probably would suit all of us to go through it again and maybe pick out.
I've already done that.
Well, damn it, Randy! Watch it again, then.
I made it through. I made it through halfway, all the kids' episodes, so through episode 5. And that's why I was like, oh, these fucking dogs. Like, what? That never did anything. Like, I don't know. There's just a couple things. But nitpicks.
There are some things alluded to that could go somewhere, but I'm not upset that they don't. I do have a prediction, though.
Give it to me, Ryan.
I'll put $5 on the table right now.
Ooh, $5.
$5. 5 imaginary whole dollars.
Right now.
That says 2019 Halloween Horror Nights House of the Year. Fucking Hill House. It's going to happen.
So
They're going to make.
You think they have time? You think they have time to do it within a year?
Probably.
Yeah, they always. Yeah, they.
Well, I know they have to like secure like the licenses and everything.
They already had an existing relationship. They did Stranger Things. This year.
They did.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
I think it'd be great.
I'm going. I'm flying.
You can walk around in Hill House.
I'm flying all of you in, and we're all gonna go. Let's do it.
We got to talk about the cooter because I've got a strong candidate, my friend.
Let me drop it.
Cooter of the week.
Wait, I want to.
Who dat cooter? Who dat cooter?
You already know.
I do.
You think it's Shelley or Shirley, whatever, right?
See, Bex knows.
Yeah,
it is Shirley.
I don't know.
She's a cooter.
She is the cooter. Hang on. She hits the spectrum like on almost.
But she doesn't have a penis.
Hang on. She's a sexual deviant. We know that. She cheats on her husband purposely with a married man. She only does it because she knows he's married. That's specifically brought out.
Because to be mean to the husband, that was because
she knew. But she also carries extreme guilt, and I don't think cooters do that very much.
I think what's his face is because he gets a vasectomy and doesn't tell anyone.
Huh?
Steve?
That's not sexual deviancy.
No, it's not deviancy, but it's definitely a cooter move. Like
cheating on your husband with a married man because he's married is more of a cooter move than getting a vasectomy when you're 18.
Not that, but his character is a cooter for sure. But I think he just like has a lot of secrets. He just isn't going to tell. And like I thought at the end that might come out in that whole scene with the wife, but
I don't think either would qualify. For my money,
fucked up life.
So hang on though. So for me, she hits the sexual deviancy. She cheats on her husband with a married man because he's married. She is clearly manipulative. She makes Luke not come to his twin sister's wedding, which could be argued. I mean, so she's manipulative. She has to control everything her way. She's got a smug arrogance to her. She, like anyone who questions her or like what she does or how she does it, like she just totally shits on. And not only that, she just totally like unprovoked shits on people who are just living their lives, and she has to butt in and like control it or like have her say like, oh, you sure are throwing your life away, or you sure are making mistakes. And she like totally shits on everybody like the whole time. Her husband, her kids, her family, literally everyone she comes into contact with, she at least shits on once.
I don't know. I don't really feel that way about her character, and I
don't either.
For some reason, I feel like Steve should get the cooter title, but I got to be honest. I think it's just that fucking actor, man. For me, I don't even know that I could explain it. I just want to call that dude a
police
cooter.
officer.
The police officer.
Popo.
No, I definitely don't agree about Shirley. I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, you can argue that that's manipulation, but that's not manipulation the way that cooters manipulate. That's not sexual deviance the way that sexual deviant, the fucking cooter section. I guess a cooter would fucking go out and just blast every dude in town because she doesn't give a fuck.
Always.
And arrogance, that's not, I don't think she's arrogant so much as she's self-righteous and put upon. And she, like, you're listing negative qualities, but I don't think they're necessarily cooter qualities.
I personally like couldn't stand her in the show. Like anytime she was just, even like when she's like talking to her kids about like her sister dead, like she stole it all from like Theo. Like she'd never, I don't know, man. She's kind of a piece of shit.
I was interested in her. I thought she was like really
like written well. She's interesting in the same way that Joffrey is like, in like in the
she's
same
not
way
a
that
villain.
No, she's not a villain. But I'm just saying, like she acted it well, and like she was intriguing, but she was still like kind of a piece of shit.
Theo is the one going to the club and getting drunk and banging people, and then like ghosting them immediately after. She's out for that booty call.
Inviting them over for a booty call.
She's a single woman.
Yeah,
but she's
I'm just saying.
But she's also.
I mean, she's allowed to do that. A lot of the
cooters are single. She also like rescues a kid from molestation at one point.
Yeah, come on, Bob.
She's a hero.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, Bob.
Come on, Bob. Fuck me. I'm sorry. I thought Suspiria was too long.
Bob clearly likes child molestation.
Oh
is
my
really
God!
What
Don't you fucking say that. Put that out in the universe. Get my ass arrested.
No.
When you become the Supreme Court justice, they'll definitely pull that shit out.
Yeah, that'll secure the job, right? I got it. I'm a shoo-in.
Oh man,
Judge Robert Bibbs, right?
If I had to pick a cooter in this show,
get off Skype.
Get off Skype.
I was
all right. We got to get into a tomato segment.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get in our Rotten Tomatoes segment.
No cooter has been determined.
Certified fresh to death.
Take it away there, Juice.
All right, so we're going to go around the table, of course. This is, luckily, Rotten Tomatoes does TV shows and whatever. So it's on here.
Twitter handle.
It's less sample size than we would like a new movie. Like I figure like if this was a movie, it'd have more people. But the critics, there's 80 total critics for Haunting of Hill House Season 1, 2018. So let's go around the room, see what you guys got. We'll start with Randy.
I'm going to say 90.
That's what I was going to say, bitch.
Dang.
You big old bitch.
All right, I'll have
Jesse,
to start with Becky
down.
next time. So, all right, let's go Beck's number dose.
Do 92 then. I was going to say
92. And Robert.
87.
87. So, everybody hate on Randy because he nailed it with 90%.
Oh my God, you're punching me.
He stole
Beat
it
his
away.
ass.
This, of the 80 critics that reviewed this, 72 were fresh. 8 were rotten. Average rating 8.39 out of 10. Certified fresh 90%. The critic consensus is The Haunting of Hill House is an effective ghost story whose steadily mounting anticipation is just as satisfying as its chilling payoff. So people are digging on this movie critic wise. So good job, Randy. Right,
thanks, man.
hitting it right on. Bullseye. I think you did, cheater, Blumpkin eater.
Blumpkin eater.
Oh my God.
Well, let's get into the audience score, and I'll let Bex pick this time since you feel like she was robbed.
I'm going to say 90 just because that's what you said last time.
Oh, Randy.
Show me, man.
Gonna be a cold bedroom tonight, Randy. I'm gonna go.
Baby.
No AC.
I'm gonna go Bob next.
I'm gonna go with an 85.
85. Oh, I didn't tell you guys real quick. The 2,569. Whoa!
Oh!
People reviewed this.
A numeral that includes 69. Oh my god!
Whoa!
Justin's the cooter
Holy
of the
shit.
show.
Yep.
So, Rob, you said 85?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, and Randy.
I have no idea. So I'm gonna go 80. I'll go 80. Round it with the fives.
Okay, damn it, Randy. I was hoping you were going to $1 because it's 91% and Beck's going to take it. That shit would have been hilarious.
I wish I had, but I also know that I would have bruises later.
I could not give a hint, but I was just hoping in my soul that you would. 91% from the audience, average rating 4.6 out of 5, which is, wait, what was our average rating?
4.8 out of 5.
Okay, so we're right on there. And yeah, so overall 90%, 91%. This movie, or no, not movie, show.
Where am I?
This shit show.
This shit show is well reviewed.
Cool.
As they usually are by the time they get to us.
Randy, you got any trivia?
I could go a little.
Let's
That means
do
a
it.
lot.
It's totally time for
This is a
trivia.
lot.
It's not that much.
It's exciting though.
It's
Take
really
it away,
not that
dog.
It's not that much.
Okay, so some of this is probably stuff we already covered. I know I introduced a few of these ideas already. In multiple wide shot scenes at Hill House, you can see ghosts in the background, sometimes just hands, shadows, and faces.
Or penises.
Becky, bringing in the sophomoric humor.
Ghost dick.
This is interesting. Russ Tamblyn, who plays Dr. Montague, that's Nell's psychotherapist or whatever, psychiatrist, played Luke in the first movie adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House called The Haunting in 1963.
That is interesting.
He also played Cha-Ching, Dr. Jacoby on Twin Peaks, a little show called Twin Peaks.
So he's a terrible psychologist all around, right?
Yeah, well, he's definitely terrible in Twin Peaks.
And this
as
one
a
too, right?
psychiatrist. In this one, because he doesn't think ghosts exist, which I don't think is his fault.
Yeah, sure. I'll give him that. All right, continue.
Let's see. Henry Thomas, who plays young Hugh Crane, wore blue contact lenses through the entire season. The elder Hugh Crane, played by Timothy Hutton, has gray eyes. Hugh enters Hill House a wide-eyed house flipper, but who never faced a problem he couldn't fix. As time passed, Thomas's bright blue eyes turned into Hutton's steely gray, as the elder Crane has pulled himself away from his children and the events that haunt him to this day. Now, that's a real long-winded way of saying these guys don't look that much alike. No. Henry Thomas, by the way, do you guys know what else he was in? Because I didn't. I actually found this out secondhand.
No.
So you ever hear of a little film called Extraterrestrial, the E.T. story? Or E.T. for short?
Oh, yes.
No, sorry. No.
You've never heard of
Never heard
E.T.?
of it.
Okay, well, it's a show.
New?
It's like Mac and Me. It's a ripoff of Mac and Me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Right. Well, he's the little boy lead of that film.
Oh.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Henry Thomas.
He's
Wait,
an ET.
what's that kid's name? Elliot?
Elliot, I believe is his name.
Damn.
Yeah.
I can kind of see it now that I'm thinking of it, huh?
Yeah, right. I don't know what his career has been between those two things, but that's him, and they made a special
Nothing.
reference to it by having an ET lunchbox make an appearance at one point.
Whoa.
Fancy.
Fancy. The first episode, the lasser glass from the film Oculus can be seen on a wall of Hill House while Nell is
Hey.
dancing through it.
Cool.
Both Oculus and Haunting of Hill House are directed by Mike Flannigan, as we all know.
Oh, Oculus was too?
Yeah.
man.
Oh, I didn't even realize when I was
really?
saying
You-
it made
you
me
brought
think
it
of
up.
Oculus. Well, I know I brought the movie up, but I didn't realize that it was directed by him.
If
It just
that-
made me think of that movie.
That's so
There you go.
interesting because it would have been such a deep pull if it hadn't been like I don't know. I don't think of Oculus all the time. I wouldn't think to bring it up in a conversation about fucking, I don't know. What was our last week? Suspiria, you know?
Yeah, I
It's
don't know. It just
interesting
made me
that-
think of it.
Well, that's
Deep
now we
pull,
know
Justin.
why. In Shirley Jackson's original novel, Eleanor, Theo, and Luke are not siblings and did not grow up in Hill House. The characters Shirley and Stephen were invented for the show.
Interesting.
So there's some very significant changes there.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of changes.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because every version of this, every adaptation I've seen of this novel has been wildly different.
So is this the same as House on Haunted Hill? Am I being stupid and asking?
No,
that?
it is. House.
Okay.
No, wait. Yeah. House on Haunted Hill, I believe, is this, and so is The Haunting 63, which I already.
Wait,
brought.
what's happening?
We're good. There's just some stuff happening above me, but we're good.
Oh, okay.
Above you? No.
I think Rob took
Put
his
your
earphones
headphones
off,
back
now we can
on.
hear it.
Oh, what's happening?
Yeah, your earphones are feeding into your mic, and we could
We
hear
were
it.
hearing ourselves.
We're hearing ourselves echo.
Oh, snap, my bad. Yeah, there's people that live above me, and there's some shit going down. So it's just
Fight.
Oh, damn.
trying to
Stand
listen.
ground laws, buddy.
Yeah,
We're in Florida.
some activity going on.
Call the popes, Rob.
We like activities. Okay. So yes, every version, House on Haunted Hill, Rob, confirm. So I'm like, because now I'm questioning myself. Was an adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel. Yes, the House
Yes.
on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
Okay, that's the Liam Neeson one, right? Where Neeson like has a bunch of people come and he tries to trick them.
Yeah.
It's haunted, but it turns out it's really haunted, and it sucks a bunch of balls.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Yeah, so that's wildly different than this, and so is the Haunting 1963, which, as I recall, was a bottle in itself where people were kind of trapped in a room and just had banging happening all around them. Not the fun banging.
Yeah, that's what I
The
thought.
annoying banging. Deviant banging. Let's see. So it's just interesting that that's been adapted so many different ways. I'm curious what the actual story is. I might have to go and check it out.
I'm curious too.
Luke's treatment center is called the Sanderson Clinic. Sanderson was Luke's last name in the Shirley Jackson novel.
Ooh.
Randy,
Also,
I'm sorry. The movie that you were talking about with Liam Neeson, that's The Haunting.
it is?
Yeah, the House on Haunted Hill was the one with Jeffrey Rush. I get them mixed up too because they came out like right around the same time.
Oh, okay.
But it's
like Bugs Life Ants.
It's
Ants.
the one that starts off with the Hulk at the beginning, like the roller coaster, the Hulk from Universal Florida. Do you know what I'm talking
What?
about? Yeah, Jeffrey.
No, apparently not.
So that House on Haunted Hill is a remake of the House on Haunted Hill, but it's got Jeffrey Rush, who's sort of like the Vincent Price character in it, and he's like this crazy guy who designs roller coaster rides, and he designs this crazy house full of contraptions. Anyway, that's not. So the House on Haunted Hill is not an adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel, but the movie The Haunting with Liam Neeson, it's called The Haunting. That's all I'm trying to say.
So is The Haunting the one where he rigs up a bunch of fake ghosts?
No, sorry, that's the one that you were describing.
That's the Jeffrey Rush.
Right, yeah.
Okay. I thought that was the Liam Neeson one. Well,
Yeah.
whatever. All the movies are so different that you literally can't tell which ones came from fucking the Hill House story by Shirley Jackson.
Kind of true. Yeah.
So the character of Shirley was invented for the show and named after Shirley Jackson. Mike Flannigan, the director of the show, is married to Kate Siegel, who plays Theo. She has also starred in his other films, including Hush and Gerald's Game, which I didn't know she was in Gerald's Game.
My
I know she was in-
wife.
What the fuck?
Rob's got jokes.
Sorry, guys.
Man.
Rob Bibbs over here.
Oh my God.
Tapping right into that 2000 humor.
My boy Bobby Bibbs. Whoa, 69.
And this is my last bit that really clarified for me where I recognized one of those kids from. Lulu Wilson, young Shirley, and Elizabeth Reeser, present day
Ouija.
Shirley. Is it Reeser? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know.
Reeser.
Also starred in Ouija, Origin of Evil, 2016. They played daughter and mother. The movie is directed by Mike Flannigan and starred Henry Thomas, who plays the father in the show. So,
Young and old Shirley did look a lot alike. So
yeah.
That reminds me of that video I sent you of the dude with the Ouija boards.
Board.
Pumpkins.
Ouija board.
Pumpkins.
Damn. We should do a whole episode about those. Everything is terrible.
We need to.
Maybe
Get a 0.
get a
Harry
bonus
Potter is
episode.
the Antichrist. Ouija board.
If you believe in Jesus, you should kill somebody.
I love when he's talking about like I could murder a man cold blood without any remorse. It's like, what are you talking about?
I love where they show the cop and he's like, "Are people ritually sacrificing babies?" Yes.
Yes.
Just like a real slow pause. Like, yes, it's the crime of the 90s.
It
Yes.
happens all the time.
The crime of the 90s.
That creepy dude
Count.
talking about like being wed to the 12-year-old, and we were married together. Like, what the fuck? The fuck?
Ouija board.
Shit, that's insane.
Punkums.
For the people who, for everyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, we'll add it in our show notes on the website.
Everything is terrible. Halloween specials are the best.
They are the best.
Yeah.
They are. Grimy Ghost too.
Grimy Ghost, yeah.
do we have any more trivia?
That's it for trivia.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
sure there's more, but I don't have it. So
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm going to skip news because we're running a little long and there's not a whole ton of stuff going on, I suppose. So next week, we're going to be back with a new episode as always. We're going to be getting into our November poll pick, which the rightful winner was
Texas
Motel
Chainsaw
Hell.
Massacre?
No, sir. Nobody
My
voted
God.
for that because it's a town movie. Nobody
Oh, The
likes
Last
that
Unicorn.
movie.
It's a dumb movie.
It's just a dumb
what
movie.
the fuck? That's okay.
You know what's not dumb? Motel Hell. That's not a dumb movie.
Well, we'll see.
Mhm.
Takes all kind of critters.
To make
That's
Farmer Vincent's fritters. We're talking
I'm excited.
about it.
I didn't think that movie would be picked, but it is
Me either.
a fucking fun ass B movie. So saddle up. If you haven't watched Motel Hell, watch it in preparation for next week. It is
Yeah.
worth your time.
Watch it on Thanksgiving before Bob Bibbs.
Oh, I can't deal with you, dude. What? Yeah, watch Motel Hell with a good beer, not a bad beer. It's a good one.
It
to watch
really
with-
makes a
with
difference.
friends.
Makes or breaks the movie every
It's the
time.
difference between a 4-star and a 2-star.
Oh god, it's also 6 hours long, so buckle up, buddy.
6 hours? What are you talking about?
Suspiria, I don't know, whatever.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So until next week, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. It helps people find us that don't know we exist, which we love and we need. You can follow us on Twitter at what, Justin? What's our Twitter handle?
Straight chillin' cruise at youtubes.com.
Nope.
Cruise.
It's
Cruise.
STRH_chilling. That's our Twitter handle. You can follow us on
We have a
Instagram.
theme cruise coming up through Six Man Productions, and we're going to be having ourselves a ball on the Carnival Magic.
I'm just gonna
Hosted by Tom Cruise.
I'm gonna mute all of you. You're all fired. You can follow us at Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can also send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Hey, if you want to hit us up on Slack, we've got a Slack channel. Join in on the fun. We talk about all kinds of crazy spooky stuff and non-spooky stuff throughout the week, including the movie review of the week. Hit us up on any one of those social media platforms and say, hey, I want to join you on Slack, and I'll send you the link so you can do that as well. It's tons of fun. And that's it. That's all my plugs. I'm done shilling our shit. Until next week, as always, everybody, please keep chilling.
Bye.